Hello everybody! Dumpsluck01, Ron Victory here. And how do I start this? Well, basically, very recently, as in like 3 days ago, every single episode of Primal became available to watch legally in the UK. Every episode from episode 1 to episode 10. The keyword is legally, because I really want to support the creators of the show. So, recently, every single episode has become available on all four. If you don't know what this is, it's basically this British streaming platform, legal, I have to say legal. All four here is owned by Channel 4, which has a deal with Adult Swim, which is the company which funds Primal. They have a deal with them to where they can distribute Primal in the UK. Legally. Oh, I could make an entire video about the topic of people watching stuff illegally. But please, if you want to watch this show, if you're in the UK, just go on to O4, it's free, you just have to sign in, and you can watch every single episode for free, just with ads. It's just better this way so we can financially support the creators. And if you're in America, you can literally just watch it on Adult Swim. Why are you pirating it if you're in America? Why, Sketchy? Why? Anyways, I have seen half of the season. Because of course, the first 5 episodes were released earlier this year. I've already seen them, so this will be my second time watching the first 5 episodes. However, I haven't seen the last 5 episodes. And I don't know anything about them. I'm going in with a complete free mind. I don't know anything about them. This is going to be very similar to what I did with Jurassic World Cretaceous, where I watch one episode, come back, record my thoughts on it, and so on and so forth. And also heads up, there will be spoilers. Please, if you haven't seen the show, please leave now. Are you serious? If you haven't seen the show, please leave now, because from what I have seen so far, it's great. So please, don't spoil it for yourself. Watch it legally on either All 4 or Adult Swim, so we can financially support the creators. Because we want this to get more seasons, don't we? So therefore, if we want more seasons, we have to support the creators. So anyways, after all of that, I believe I should begin the first episode. Okay. I only have one thing to say about this episode. Wow! This first episode is a lot better than I remember it being. First off, I just want to talk about how I adore that there isn't talking in this show. I adore the fact that this show is carried by the amazing animation and the phenomenal soundtrack. Both of these just guide your emotions and guide the story. I love this. Like, yes, I know this isn't scientifically accurate. I don't care. Like, this show obviously isn't taking itself that seriously realistically, because we have Quetzalcoatluses with giant teeth. We have Ceratosaurus the size of skyscrapers. This show doesn't care if it's realistic. This show just wants to tell a compelling story, and I love it for that. I just really like to point out the parallels between Fang and Spear here. Which is, of course, the fact that they both lose loved ones to the Ceratosaurus things. I know they're probably not Ceratosauruses because first off they're ginormous. Either that or Fang is really small. And second of all because their horns are different. But I'm calling them Ceratosaurus because they're the only thing I can think of that's close enough to what was on the screen. I really love the parallels between them. Because of course at the beginning we have the three younger Ceratosaurs eat Spear's family. We have one eat his wife and the other two eat his two children. There's a specific shot where a Ceratosaurus grabs the child, flings it into its mouth, and then it jumps down and you just see the blood bleed from its mouth. Which first off is really effective on its own, and that same exact shot comes back later in the show where the big mama Ceratosaur eats Fang's children. That is wonderful! That is phenomenal! And even though this is only 2 minutes long, I really felt sorry for the characters. Particularly Fang. Because the scene after the battle has ended and Spear killed the big Ceratosaur, we have Fang investigate her nest, which was heartbreaking. Oh, that was so sad. And I'd also like to compare that with what happens to Spear and how he dealt with the death of his children, well, his family. Where in most shows where the family of a person dies, as soon as they die, the main character normally goes on an immediate quest for revenge. Meanwhile, this show doesn't do that. This show does it realistically. Where, instead of rushing straight to anger, straight to revenge, Spear goes through a sort of stage of depression where he actually considers jumping off that mountain. I love that! Like, yes, this is a show where cavemen live at the same time as dinosaurs, and dinosaurs are ginormous, and this is a world where flying reptiles have spiky teeth and beaks. The point is, this show deals with grief more realistically than most live action films. And most people will assume this at the first time looking at this to be a kids show, which it is not. I love this. I'm already in one episode. I'm only one episode in, and I'm already gushing all over it. This is way better than I remember it being. And now, is there anything else that I have to say? Yes, there's one more thing which I have to say, which is the phrase, every frame is a painting. This show is the epitome of that. Like, yes, it's obviously because everything is hand-drawn, so yes, everything is technically a painting or a drawing. But this show looks phenomenal! I do have a few complaints, which is mainly the slow-mo, because the slow-mo is horrible. It's most likely because of how many frames the show is animated at, because most shows are animated at 24 frames per second, I believe. I don't know if this is 24 frames per second or lower than that, but the slow-mo isn't done that well. The slow-mo looks very janky and I do not like the slow-mo. But that is my only complaint so far. I love this. And now, I better shut this camera off so I can move on to the second episode. So now here we are, I just finished episode 2, River of Snakes. Wasn't as good as the previous episode, but I still really enjoyed it. This episode seems to be mostly surrounding the relationship, oh god, that sounds weird out of context, between Fang and Spear, which is demonstrated when Spear and Fang fight. Neither of them really win. It's because they're both equals. Fang isn't Spear's pet, Spear isn't Fang's pet, they're equals. And also, the beginning of this episode is slightly more comedic, with Fang stealing the food from Spear, particularly the scene where Spear is chowing down on a bug and Fang just comes along and tries to take it. That part particularly really reminds me of myself and my dog, apart from the fact that my dog doesn't have a massive fang and I don't have any spears. Something I really like about that is that yes, Fang is more animalistic than Spear, but she isn't stupid. She is intelligent, but she isn't as intelligent as Spear. I almost said Fang there. I have no clue what I'm doing. So I really like that part near the end, with the little snake coming up next to Fang while she's sleeping. Her first instinct isn't to bite it or kill it, but she's actually scared by it. Then then Spear comes in and stabs it through the head. Well, he chucks the spear at it, but I think you get my point. So I think going forward, maybe Fang will be scared of snakes because maybe she's traumatized after what happened at the river. Something else I'd really like to point out as well is the scene in the cave, where Spear is doing the little shadow puppets with his hand. One of my main complaints with the previous episode, which I didn't mention, is that we didn't get a sense of a connection between Spear and his family because the first time we saw them they died. But I like how they're building up the connection between him and his family even though they're already dead. Also, can I just mention, I really like the shift between his hand puppets and the shadow of the giant ceratosaur eating the children. I really like that. And I also really like how he immediately just turns to Fang. Because what would Spear see when he looks at Fang? He sees a giant reptile with lots of teeth. And the thing that killed his family were giant reptiles with lots of teeth. I really like that. I'm like, yeah, Spear is more intelligent than Fang, but he isn't human level intelligence. He's getting there, but he's more primitive. However, one of my main complaints with this episode is the giant snake, the Titanoboa. It kind of just like appears for 5 seconds and it's just dead immediately. I mean, like, I understand why. I mean, like, it's obviously there to clearly show that when Fang and Spear work together, they can both survive. But I really would have liked if we got to see a little bit of that fight between Fang and the Titanoboa when they were in the water. Because we don't get to see any of it, and the only bit that we get to see is the Titanoboa's head floating. So, besides that, I really like this episode. It's not as good as the first one, we're only 2 episodes in, but it is still really good. Now excuse me, I'm going to move on to the next episode, which I know is the Mammoth episode. I remember that episode being my favourite when I watched this the first time. Now let's see if it holds up. once again, wow. Just wow. So far it's clear that every single episode has had its own theme. First episode was clearly about loss. Second episode was clearly about... How would I describe this? About working together or something like that. I fail to get the exact word at the moment. But this episode is clearly about survival or hunting in general. Because it's very clear that this show's approach to violence or just killing in general isn't like most shows where it's like, oh yeah, this is amazing, you give me so, isn't this cool? This show is more like, it's cruel, but it's necessary. It's necessary for survival. I really like how this show represents that. It shows this at the beginning with Spear and Fang killing the elder mammoth, but with Spear showing some remorse towards it. With it feeling sympathy as he looks into its eyes while holding a rock in his hand about to bash it over its head. I like how he shows sympathy. Meanwhile, Fang doesn't even care. Fang's just over in the corner eating away. Meanwhile, Spear is just questioning everything. Why am I laughing? This is also clearly represented where Spear has a flashback to his son when they went hunting, with them killing the elk thing. I don't know the exact name of it, but it's very clear that that part right there clearly represents what I'm talking about. Mainly the shot where they look into the eye of the fallen elk. Like, yeah, it's nasty, it's violent, but it's necessary. Another thing I'd really like to talk about is the mammoths. Especially the alpha mammoth. Because somehow this show has given the alpha mammoth some kind of a character. Because it's very clear that this mammoth is the alpha. It's meant to be headstrong, it's meant to be stoic, it's meant to be strong, it's meant to lead the whole group. But we see this kind of facade sort of break when he notices that the elder mammoth's tusk is gone. Because of course, in real life, elephants mourn the dead. So we can presume that mammoths did the same exact thing. Most of the time where we look at it, it's oh stoic, big and mean. But when it goes down to search for the tusk, we see that break. We just see a more compassionate side of a mammoth, where we see its eyes just dart open, and as it starts searching for the tusk. This is also reflected when it takes the tusk from Spear. A few seconds before, it's all mean, and it goes out and tries to kill Spear and Fang. But as soon as it sees the tusk, we see that break, and it's just beautiful how they managed to do this. Now we have to talk about the mammoth graveyard. I remember the first time watching this. That part particularly felt like I just got punched in the gut. I don't know why, but when I originally watched this, the scene with the mammoth graveyard was really impactful. And it still is now. With them placing the tusk on the ground, along with all of the other fallen mammoths of the past. And with each mammoth individually stroking the tusk with their trunk. And then they all start wobbling in some kind of ritual. But I love it. This episode was amazing. I really like how even just looking at it, it just feels like you're cold. Also, one complaint that I have is the Smilodons. They're only there for a split second, which was quite disappointing because, come on, they're Smilodons. We want to see more Smilodons. But this episode, once again, was amazing. Better than the last episode, but the last episode was great as well. And I'd say this episode is on par with the first one. So, now let's move on to episode 4.
I'm a brave boy. Not a brave enough boy for this!
Okay. I just completed episode 4, Terror Under the Blood Moon. And all I have to say is... this episode is just balls to the wall insane and I love it. This show doesn't take place in reality. You can tell. They have giant bats and giant spiders. I love it. It's so insane. So what did I like about this episode? First thing I really have to say is the beginning. The chase scene where Spear and Fang are being chased by the Utah Raptors. First off, can I just say, the raptors in this are more accurate than ones in Jurassic Park. That's all I'm going to say. But it doesn't really affect the story, but all I have to say is I really like the specific moment where Fang roars and the raptors copy it. I don't know why, but that was probably one of the most high-paced moments in the show so far. There's another thing I really have to say is I like how it sort of subverted my expectations. I expected Fang to be taken away to the spider's den and for Fang to save her. I expected Fang to be taken away and Spear to save her. But no, it's the other way around. And it's, in my opinion, it's much better the other way around. Because it clearly demonstrates that Fang, yes, she isn't as intelligent as Spear, but she's still really intelligent. Well, to a standard. She thought of the plan to, oh, how about I get her attention and play dead? This episode was great. The music, the animation, everything. Just, I also really like how they tied the ending back to the beginning. With Spear running back, well, with Spear and Fang once escaping the spider's den, running back towards the grass where the raptors were, with all of the bats following them. That was amazing! From a writing point of view, this episode probably wasn't the best, but just from epicness, this episode was probably the best. This isn't my favourite episode, but damn, this is good! Ah yes, there's the humanoid things. I don't really have anything to say about those. Apart from the shot where the fog fades and we just see this rock with skulls carved into them, which was clearly the humanoid things. It's clearly something that they made as a warning to scare off intruders, to say, hey, if you come in here, you are going to die. If you're not dead already. But I love this episode. I pretty much guarantee I'm gonna love all of them. But we're getting closer towards the new episodes. And also, I'd really like to mention that there was a Triceratops corpse in this. So, I hope we're gonna see Triceratops later in the season. I really hope we are, because I think the Triceratops would be amazing in this show. Because look at what we've done with Fang already. I really want a Triceratops in this show, because if you have a Tyrannosaurus, you pretty much have to have a Triceratops. Or a Spinosaurus. But I don't think this show is going to go there with a Spinosaurus. They might if there's a second season. Has the second season been confirmed? I don't know. But the key point is, this episode wasn't the best writing-wise, but it was amazing everywhere else. So, now I believe we should move on to the last episode, which I know, which is episode 5. So I just watched episode 5, Rage of the Ape Men. I can't believe I'm halfway through already. Where do I begin? The paradise that they discovered at the beginning was beautiful. I wish I could live there. So of course, Frank gets kidnapped by these ape men and gets tossed into a ring which is surrounded by these ape men who worship the fight of battle. I'll go with it. I noticed at the beginning that it wasn't as gory as it usually is. But then I went, oh, they were holding back. Because, oh my gosh, that ending! I can't even describe it. It was just gory. That's the only word I can use. I really like how at the beginning in the paradise, I like how River of Snakes is brought back. Because I was worried that each episode will be more of an individual story instead of a overall connected story. But it's clear here that certain events from certain episodes will carry on. With Fang in this being scared of a worm because it's close to a snake. So yeah, I was right, Fang is scared of snakes now. And also we have the giant ape man put a Triceratops skull on. So I think it's pretty safe to say that Triceratops will be in the next 5 episodes. And I can't wait to see them because I think they'll be well done. Because everything else in Primal is well done. Wow, just wow. This video is just a compilation of me going wow. I know Fang isn't dead, but still. When she fought the ape man, I felt like she was going to die. Especially the part where the ape man knocks her back leg and oh, I was wincing at that. Oh. This was another really, really good episode. Yes, I'm keeping this one short because I really want to move on to the next 5. But as these 5 on their own, all of them are amazing in their own individual way. My two favourites so far is the first one and A Cold Death. The other three are kind of on the lower side because River of Snakes is it's really good, but it's not as good as episode 1 and 3. Blood Moon is probably the best sequence wise, but isn't the best writing wise. But this one, I don't know what to think about it. Just like every other episode, it's amazing, but not as good as episode 1 or 3. Look, I just really want to end this episode so I can move on to the other 5. Because I haven't seen the other 5 episodes. I don't know anything about the other 5 episodes. So please, if you don't want to get spoiled, please leave now. And please watch it legally. This show needs all of the support it needs. That didn't make any sense. This show needs to get more support. This show is phenomenal. And it deserves even more recognition. So now I believe this is where I move on to episode 6. I don't know anything. And I just watched episode 6. The first new episode I have seen. I loved it. I really like how in this episode Spear is pushed and we see him push his physical limits with trying to care for Fang as she recovers from what happened in the last episode. We see this through him carrying her with the little carrier thing, and along with him fending off the hyenodons. Can I say the hyenodons' laugh was haunting? I don't know why, but something about their laugh is horrifying. And I did not expect bugs. I did not expect itty bitty bugs to be one of the main threats in this episode. I did not see that coming. And the ending, where Fang bursts out of a cave and starts killing all the hyenodons herself, that is one of the best moments in the show so far. When that happened, I threw my fists up in the air and I don't know how to describe it, but I loved this episode. This episode is once again one of the best yet. I'd say this episode is up there with episode 1 and episode 3. This episode is amazing. This is all I'm going to have to say here, because first off, I'm running out of memory, and second of all, we have 4 more episodes left. The next episode is Plague of Madness, which I have seen. I completely forgot it was actually in these, I just thought, at the time, I thought this was just a discount episode which won't be in the actual season. So, I ended up watching that episode on YouTube because there was a playlist of the whole entire episode. Look, I regret doing it, okay? I might be a bit of a hypocrite here, but I kind of regret watching it on YouTube. But now I get a chance to financially support it. So, let's move on to Plague of Madness.
I don't like where this is going. Stop! Stop!
Well, that was Plague of Madness. I don't know what to say. I'm floored. Let's start off at the beginning. We have Camarasaurus, which is the first time we've seen Camarasaurus in the show. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've actually seen a sauropod in the show. We see it being all gentle and being a giant, graceful being. And then that fucking parasaur comes out of nowhere! My question is, will there be more of these? Will there be more mad dinosaurs? Because something would have had to bite Parasaur to make it turn out like this. So something would have to have bitten Parasaur in the first place. That's not counting if the Parasaur itself had bitten anything else. And when this thing vomited into the lake, anything that drinks from that will most likely become just like this. Just that scene where it goes around and kills everything. That was a massacre. This right here shows that herbivores can be as scary, if not scarier, than carnivores. Dear tank. Then we have the disturbing dream sequence where the Camarasaurus bites Fang and Spear and Spear in particular. It was unrelenting. It took a volcanic field to stop it. If there's any more, if there's any more just like this, their world would be doomed. My only concern going forward is that this might just be a one-off. I really hope this whole Plague of Madness thing becomes the primary antagonist, I guess, for the next 3 episodes. This was the most horrific, one of the most horrific things I've seen in general. In that case, to lighten the mood, I should say that I found this video of Genndy Trzaskowski, who if you don't know is the creator of the show going through a storyboard of this specific episode. And it is both the funniest.
Come up on one. We pan up and we see it's actually a little baby. And another one takes a bite.
And scariest thing I have ever seen.
Hideously, not mutated, but like pores and pus and like diseased creature comes out.
I guarantee Gandhi Trzaskowski would have had to do some of the sounds for the episode. From the Mad Dinosaurs. Is this the best episode? Maybe. This is a serious contender for the best episode, along with episode 1. At the ending, where the Camarasaurus is burnt alive. Well, it's not really alive anymore, is it? There's two things that I take away from it. Which is that this thing is unstoppable. If there's any more just like this, it will probably take this amount of effort just to kill one of them. If it took this amount of effort just to kill one of them, what if there's more? Sorry about that, my iPad's still turned on. I just got my iPad while the ads are on. And another thing I take away is this Camarasaurus didn't deserve it. This Camarasaurus didn't want this. But now it's brought a curse upon the land which we have never seen. This is worse than the ape man. This is worse than the spider. This is the plague of madness. Excuse me. I'm going to take a break for now. But for next time you see me, I would have watched episode 5. I mean episode 8. Dear tank, episode 8. We only have 3 more episodes left. How? Excuse me. I really need to take a break from this. And now I just watched episode 8. This is my favorite episode. Where do I start? This episode is most likely set up for the next season, which there probably will be. Because of course we have the Plague of Madness, which has been set up in the last episode, and this weird cultist thing which was established in this episode. But that lady. Oh my gosh. We had at first I thought the entire theming of this video, of this episode, was birth. Because we have the weird demon lady bring life into this world. We have Spear witness the birth of Spear's child, and witness the hatching of Fang's children. But then it came to the lady's backstory. That is when I realized this episode isn't about birth, it's about loss. The lady in this episode relates to Fang and Spear because of the loss that she has experienced in the past. This is incredible. It just so happens that the weirdest episode is the best one. I'll fully admit, at first I was weirded out. Because not only do we have ape men and those goblin things and caveman, we now have these witches and a lizard demon lady, which transforms into a wolf and has the ability to mind control animals. This is the weirdest episode, and that's saying a lot about Primal. But this is the best episode. I believe this is the best episode of Primal so far because of the emotional impact you get out of her character motivations. We just get to see the birth of Fang's children and Spears. Oh, it's so beautiful. I love it. This is Primal. If I could point towards one episode which summarizes the entirety of Primal, it would be this one. You get a sense of horror, of action, and then you get the emotional side of Primal. Which is odd because this show right here has more emotion displayed. And this is a show which characters don't talk. This show shows more emotion. Oh, it went off. Oh, come on. This show shows more emotion than most films and TV shows which can talk. How? This episode is amazing. It is my favorite. So now we have 2 episodes left. Let's continue.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see the light until I was already a man. By then it was nothing to me but blinding.
Okay, I just finished episode 9. The Night Feeder. Now, this episode isn't the best writing-wise, but it's phenomenal set-piece-wise. The part I'd really like to draw attention to is where whatever this is going through the Triceratops herd, which it's good that we actually got to see a herd before which can actually fight back. Where it was first person, which and you see it from its point of view as it goes along and slashes over these Triceratopses to bits. I don't know why I sound so happy there. It wasn't a happy situation. And also, it's very clear that Fang knows what this is, and Spear doesn't. Now the question is, what the hell is this? Now, in its death scene, we see it has 3 long claws. So, it's probably a part of a Pharazenosaurid family. So, my personal theory is that this is a Pharazenosaurus which caught the plague of madness. Ah yes, what a combo. One of the weirdest looking dinosaurs of all time turned into a mad zombie. That is what I reckon this is. I think this is a mad Pharazenosaurus. And the reason why I think it has the plague of madness is mainly towards the end. When Spear throws the flaming spear at it, we see it's actually alive when it starts burning. and it dies in a very similar fashion to the Camarasaurus in the Plague of Madness. So I reckon this thing has the Plague of Madness. Plague of Madness. Something else I'd really like to point out, which is on the writing side, is the scene after the... I'm gonna call this a Therizinosaur. After the Therizinosaur destroys the whole entire ceratopsid herd. Triceratopsid herd. I'm just trying to sound too clever here, I'm sorry. Where Spear climbs up a tree and he sees the blood and he kind of turns away from it. He wasn't upset because he couldn't save them. No, he isn't a superhero. He was upset in this scenario because of the killing, basically. Because it's clear that Spear only believes in killing if it's necessary. Like, for example, if you need food, or if it's for survival, like if a thing is going to kill you. But in that scenario, it was just an animal which was going crazy and killing everything in sight. Which wasn't for survival, which is why Spear turned away from it. I will say I am quite disappointed that we didn't get to see a full body shot of it. This also might not be a Therizinosaurus because it has teeth and it doesn't have a beak. So who knows, this might be a original creature in Primal. But just because I like dinosaurs, I'm probably going to call it a inaccurate Therizinosaurus. Because come on, the Stratusauruses are ginormous. I'm pretty sure we can handle a Therizinosaurus with teeth. Once again, fantastic episode. And another highlight of the episode was, for me, was with Spear and Fang lighting the fire. Going it and lighting the darkness with the flames of the spear. I loved it. This episode isn't the best, especially following the best episode. But this episode is still really good. Like most episodes of Primal, but who knows, as far as I know, the next episode could shit the bed. That's a bad thing if you didn't know. So, let's get on to the final episode.
How to spoon. Dick hard in the butt. Titty in my hand. Kiss your neck. Hell yeah. What? How to spoon. Dick hard in the butt. Titty in my hand. Kiss your neck. Hell yeah. What?
I just watched episode 10 and... Huh? Where do I begin with this? Nothing really. Where do I begin? This is such a unique case. This isn't like every other episode where it just seems to be one long action sequence or one small story. This right here is clearly set up for a season 2. So, let's talk about what was in this setup. And here we encounter Mira? I think that was her name. I should know her name. It's the only word they say. So there are somewhat advanced civilizations out there. Because there are slave traders. There are boats. I can't get over the fact that there are boats. There's bows and arrows. Huh? This is so different from previous episodes. Also, can we just take a second to appreciate the I think it's called a Chronosaur at the beginning of this episode. It looked nice for the 5 seconds it got. This is a strange episode. Because rather than telling a little story of its own, this is clearly set up for a second season. I was expecting something different from the last episode. Like, I was expecting a grand epic fight between Spear and Fang with Spear and Fang against the plague of dinosaurs infected by the plague of madness and the witches from the previous episode. I expected them all to come together and have a massive brawl. And who knows, maybe a second T-Rex shows up. But no, we got this instead. I like this, but this wasn't what I was expecting. Second of all, I have never been so shocked by somebody speaking. The point of this episode is clearly there to set up the relationship between Spear and Mira. So can we just take a second to appreciate Fang being a jealous... Can we just take a second to appreciate Fang being a jealous girlfriend throughout the entirety of this episode? I mean, like, the first 7 minutes of this episode is pretty much just Fang trying to find a way to accidentally kill Mira. But I am very intrigued about where this is going. So since this ends on a cliffhanger, and I think I heard news about there maybe being a second season, there's pretty much going to be a second season. I look forward to it. As an ending of a season, it's kind of underwhelming because I was expecting like an end, but no, instead we got set up for a second season. But the last option will really only work depending on if the second season is good. So what I presume will happen in the second season is that it's all about Fang and Spear trying to free Mira. Because obvious that the slave traders were going towards some grand master. So so Fang and Spear's goal throughout the entirety of the next season will probably be to get to that slave owner's castle thing, go there and kill him and free Mira. And things get killed along the way. That's a perfect summarization of Primal. Things happen while things get killed on the way. But yeah, I like this. This isn't the best episode, but it is probably the weakest episode in my opinion. Along with this and River of Snakes. Like, yes, I really enjoy River of Snakes, but River of Snakes was not as good as the other episodes. This episode just kind of felt out of place. It's kind of like the studio went to Gandhi and went, "Hey, we want a second season. Leave it on a cliffhanger, so we can make a second season." That was kind of anticlimactic. But you can guarantee, when season 2 comes, I'll be here watching it. Even though I'm kind of disappointed that it wasn't more of a emotional ending. But what we got, it was fine. All the other episodes are amazing, and all I have to say about this one is that it's fine. This isn't the end of the show, Adam. This is just leading into the second season. So yeah. I just watched Primal. Now there's 2 animated shows with dinosaurs in, which I probably hope to make essays out of in the future, but I'll probably never end up making them because I'm lazy. That's a mouthful! So I think I should just end it here? I guess I am. Okay, so thank you all so much for watching. If somehow you've made it this far into the video, I don't know how, if you have. But yeah, isn't Domsex01 roaring to victory? Ah!
It's cold, just cold, into the mouth. Nice. Is my mom, she's doing the same. It's cold, just cold, into the mouth.